This is the Historical Commission. It is March 12, 2019. For those of you still in your jammies at home watching us on tape, we'll try and be entertaining. Tonight, we have 4 people. We're so excited. We haven't been able to have the last 2 meetings. One, Mother Nature threw some snow at us, and before that, we didn't have a quorum. So we're pleased to be here. Welcome Mike back after about a year's absence. Wow. So he's back, he's up and running, and we're going to start by skipping over the minutes for the last 2 meetings because there were no meetings. And we're going to move right on to the Malzer grant. I've got a copy for each of you in front. And this grant will go in at the end of the month. It's for historic trades on the Dudley Common. This would be a repeat of what we had sponsored last year by the Malzer grant. The trust, the Janet Malzer Humanities Trust. And it allowed us to get some trades people, some skilled, trained
artisans.
Artisans. I always love that. I always think of a bread, artisan breads, showing their wares. I mean, how they do it, how they make it. And it was a big hit last year. So we're asking the Malzer grant, even though they normally don't fund something 2 years in a row, to make an exception here, to allow us to do it again. We had a lot of good comments and a lot of people that missed it and said, oh, I would have gotten up there if I'd known. So maybe this fall, when this thing happens, if we've got a grant, we'll get to do it again. So it's in front of you, and it moves through a description of this organization, talks about the date, which is going to be October 5, the same weekend as the same time as the craft fair that the Black Tavern's going to be doing. And I assume, although we haven't got any final dates, that will be the Apple Festival.
How did it go last year, the first one? Did it go okay?
It was excellent. It was phenomenally good. And I think what was nice is you could get right up to them. These are trained OSV, Old Sturbridge Village people, in costume. I think the forge was my favorite. You know, the guys running that little forge there, and you wouldn't think you could have something that tiny that could be that effective. The potter, seamstress, leather goods shoes.
Do we have people?
We had people. Yeah, it was a good turnout. It was a decent day, and we found in the fall sometimes you just don't get the weather you need, but it worked out great. So they didn't freeze, and they were there all day. That was a long slog for these folk. They weren't under tents. They were out in the open. I suppose if it rained, they would have been under a shelter of some sort. But they're used to doing this. They're used to dealing with the public, kids, explaining things, and it was just very nice to see that done and figuring out, okay, all these would have been done in the home.
Were they remunerated with the grant?
They got $200 for the day, each of them. But that was a long day, 6 hours for $200, which, I don't know, some people would say, oh, it sounds like a lot of money. Not when you're working like that. Not when you got to bring all your equipment with you, and you've got to talk with everybody that comes through.
I remember years ago down at the American House, Teddy Hyatt was running the place. They had some minutes from Polish organizations that had Polish picnics right after the war, and these guys would play they give them about 14 cents a piece and they'd play for 12 hours.
Yeah. No, this is if we have somebody that comes to the tavern and does a program, they get a couple of $100 and they do what, an hour? You know,
Yeah.
they schlep all their stuff there, they get in costume or whatever, they do their presentation. So with their transport and everything, they get about $200 a program. So for these people to do this for 6 hours, like, incredible. So we're hoping this will be approved. This will go in by April 1, and Dave Prue will be doing the on-site coordination during the event. McKenna wrote the grant for last year, so this is pretty much based on similar stuff that she did. So any questions on that?
Do we have a plan B if we can't get the Mauser grant for this?
No.
Okay.
It's $1,400 to come up with. We could scurry around. We got panicky.
Mm-hmm.
We've had very good support from local businesses or anything we've ever asked for. So we could discuss, do we want to try and ask for some of that? You know, that would be a possibility.
Do we have a plan B in case it rains, like tents that we could get, or
There is
inside
no,
the barn?
it's a go for the day.
Beat on the anvil in the rain.
Could you do something in the barn?
Well, we do normally present, the barn's gonna have crafters in it, because crafters will be in the house, the grounds in the front, the barn, and on the town common. That's a
Oh,
big-
this is gonna be the craft fair?
This is the craft fair.
Okay.
This is a big event. And if the Granger's running their Apple Fest, then we have that running over there. So there's a lot going on for, a few hours on the common that day. So it's rain or shine, has to happen.
Yeah,
So you cross your fingers.
yeah.
One year it was mud, remember? They tore up the road and that was the
Don't
day.
worry, we'll get it all fixed up for you.
So that's the hope, that the grant will be sent in shortly. All right, let's talk, historic district progress. I'm hearing nothing from Boston, what a surprise. But Greg and I are putting a little plan together to put the heat under them and see if we can get this thing finally over the finish line. We're just tired of waiting. But one thing we're going to do is put together a brochure for a walking tour. We've got enough information that we had to get to build the program for the historic district to start using that information ourselves. So got a couple different ones here. This one is like from Cornwall, Connecticut. This one's Oil City, Pennsylvania. Just different looks on how they did it. The one I've got in here is a really slick presentation. This was Charlton's. They got money from the Mass Turnpike Authority. So
That was a few years ago now.
this has been a few years old. They got some really nice money from them. You don't get that anymore, it disappeared. So these, we'll have something more on this line. I asked for and received a grant from the Cultural Council to cover all the printing. And I've talked to a couple of people about how we would want to do it, how we would map it out. So my hope is to have it ready for the printers and finished printing by the Strawberry Festival, have them available then. Because you got a lot of people up on the common, it's a good time to hand them out. And then they'll be available around town. Libraries in town, Webster, Charlton, little places where people can just grab them and then go up to the town common and start their tour. And it'll tell them, here's where you're standing, To your right is this, to your left is that. Explain a few of those sites as they go up and down Center Road. You good?
Yeah.
The last thing he said was yes. All right, you can talk. Okay, get a little worried. So that's the planning for that.
This is a fantastic brochure.
It was.
Mhm.
The cost, I don't know what the cost on that would be, it's way over what we need. These are good because they're quick, they're not expensive, it's one long piece of paper, flipped around, you got a little map, and people can figure it out, say, okay, I'm going this way, or however you locate your map, and get it done. So that's coming. Any questions on that one? All right, Granite Stone for the new fire department building is up. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Going by the fire department, how do I explain this? The new doors, you've seen those big red doors. The brick pieces between them, they're 2 or 3. It's on one of those, and it's about eye height, and it's in there. So you'll notice brick, and then, wait, what's that? And that's a piece of granite. So the granite came from the Stevens Dye House Mill, and we inscribed it with all those others and indicated that it was from the Stevens Mill, I forgot what they did. That was 1830s, the dye house? Was that before they, or is that 1850s? That was 1850s.
Probably 1850s.
Yeah, and that's on it. It's just a little homage to Dudley's past. And it's a piece of granite that would have been quarried locally. We found one that was in reasonable shape. We had it squared off. Mercer Monuments right next door did the job for us. And I haven't seen the bill, so I guess it's a complimentary job.
Good.
I'm real happy about that. They do a nice job.
They quarried a lot of stone up around Peter Pond.
Yeah. So it's local quarry.
They call that Mount Stevens, back in the day.
Because of the quarry? Because of the granite there?
Well, he owned owned a terrible,
Yeah.
humongous amount of land and water rights and
Yeah.
everything all the way up to Charlton. They
Yep.
called it Mount Stevens in the newspapers.
Yeah. And we don't think of it as a high area because you gradually just move up.
Right.
It's not like you're going really uphill, unless you're walking and then you say, I think I'm going uphill. So it's there. Take a peek when you go by.
All right.
Don't take your eyes off the road. I was trying to get a peek at it the other day. I went, concentrate on the road, Ed. All right, that's that. Future events for the town, Centennial Committee proposal. This I want to spend a couple of minutes on. Let's figure this out. We're looking at 2032, and people say, what? 12 years out. But I would see this as a year-long celebration that would conclude in 2032. That would be the happy birthday cake stage of it. It's just like whatever year you're in, until you completed the year, they don't give you credit for it, People say, I want to live till I'm 90, and they're 89 and they're in tough shape. And I said, you're in your 90th year. Oh, yeah. Okay, bye, Ed. So we would want a years-long celebration and with some memorable stuff. And I want to get us organized early. We'll go to the selectmen in the next month or so and talk to them about it. And I think maybe it starts as a subcommittee of this commission. And we get people, and I do have people already volunteering that have heard. around the block about what's going on.
Well, we gotta get some recruits that are gonna be around for that, you know.
We're looking, Mike, we're looking for people younger than us.
Yeah.
Us.
Yeah, yeah,
So there are some that
yeah.
might still be here in 12 years.
I hope so.
Yeah. And they can say, I remember when Ed and Mike talked about this. And if we're here, Mike, they're gonna have to wheel us up there.
There you go, we'll wheel you to the different events.
Maybe they won't wheel, maybe they just have drones by then.
Maybe.
Just
The
Fly 'em over.
The dementia twins, just sit them there and watch them drool.
But I'm hoping we can have a long-range plan that would include the Dye House turned into a park, and that is a long-range plan. And we can call it Centennial Park, or whatever we want to call it. If we get somebody with enough money, maybe we'll give naming rights. And they can change it every year. For the highest bidder every year can call the park their own.
Sure.
But that takes a long time to design, to do the site work, to put trees and grass and all that stuff that's got to go in there. Because right now, the Dye House is nothing but a rock heap. It's just crushed stone up there. And there's a lot of work to be done. But there are a lot of other things that we want to look at. I was at the town common recently, and we did such a nice job putting the founding families. It looks good. And I was standing there and I went, okay, there's a problem with this. These are the male founding families. These are the names of the males in town, not the females. So now I've got to go back and look at what was the...
You're not gonna find too much. I'll tell you.
Well, I think we will. I think we're going to find enough on birth records and whatnot to get some of these.
No, you
female
get some of them, you might grab
Yeah.
some of them, but...
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna work at it. Because I said, obviously, we missed the boat here, because if you're doing your genealogy and you come up there, you need more than, okay, here are the Turpics. And then somebody's poking you saying,
Yeah.
hello, wouldn't be here without us.
Yep.
And I went, oh, crum. So I don't know how I'm gonna fix that, but we're gonna work on it. I don't think I have enough room. I'd left some room there in case there had to be a few names mentioned. But we'll see. I've got to figure, there were about 30 names I think on there. So we could have as many as,
That's probably just the tip of the iceberg, but that's all the...
but I'd like to start
written down,
collecting.
yeah.
So I need people to volunteer to do some genealogy stuff. And I'll talk to the genealogy group and say, hey, this is a nice little project for you. And we can come up with some way to go back and correct, not correct it, but make it right. It's just we forget, It was so male-driven. And I smacked myself for that one. I said, what were, because I always look back in my family tree and I'm astounded at the shifts that go onto the female line. And a lot of the important jogs come out of that. And I said, wow, without these lines in there, if you went straight back with your male line, it might end sooner. You just wouldn't be finding enough stuff. And you wouldn't find the fun people. Most of them came out of the females. So that's another one. We want to look at photographs. We've got a lot of stuff in the library now we're starting to collect. And I talked to the new librarian, and she has a background in archival work. So I'm going to be meeting with her probably tomorrow and start to talk about how we preserve what we've got, how we can expand our collection make it a collection. We're not quite ready yet to ask for stuff because we want to make sure we do it right. We just don't want it coming in a shoebox and then getting dumped on.
The old librarian was pursuing
Yeah.
help from the state, and we actually had, even before I got sick, we had somebody come down from the state to scope it out, see if
So
they
we're
can
gonna
get
do
the
that.
answer on.
'Cause that's-
I don't know where her leaving leaves us with,
Well, I think-
with the state.
I think we can reconnect with them. I don't think that was a problem. They did some initial work, and assuming that person's still on board, we can ask for another.
I forget what her name was.
Yeah. I've got it somewhere in our notes. But those are the kinds of things. I'd like to see us be able to produce a hardbound book for the Centennial that has writings and photographs. You know, we got a lot of catching up to do. We're in the midst of stuff, and we're not collecting contemporary stuff. And we should be. So somebody at some point is going to say, what happened during this period? We don't have any, there are a lot of selfies.
Yeah.
But there's no documentation. There's nobody at home collecting photographs and albums anymore. So maybe in this 10-year period coming up to it, we do a fairly extensive contemporary retrospective on what the place looks like. And catch a few people before they step off the stage, as it were. Make sure we got their comments, and Mike and I will write up our stuff. But we don't know, you know, we worry so much about preserving the old stuff, and we forget that we're in the midst of it all the time. So those are the kinds of things that will go on. I'll work this out to see what structurally we need to do. If we can just have a subcommittee of this commission, at least to start, I think that's enough. As it gets closer to the date, we need to do something broader and more established and move it out. But maybe we can do all the underpinnings and have it ready to go. Questions on that? Thinking caps on? Because now you're gonna have to go around town and say, oh, look at that, you know? If I don't get a picture of this, a real picture, don't send me a thumbnail. You know, I'll go, okay, it's going to the cloud. We gotta hope there are clouds in 2032 that we can get pictures from. And my wife complains to me all the time now. She says, used to make me albums, used to have pictures for my albums. And now she said, if I want something, you say, oh, it's in the computer, dear. So I do have to print her pictures all the time. And I said, you need to think about that. So preservation projects, we covered that on the walking tour thing. We've still got some money that's been appropriated to do preservation. We're working with Aura and the town clerk. Aura's on her last couple of months.
4 months, I think.
She'll be out of here in June, or she'll be off the job in June. And I don't know who's going to take over, but we've got to make sure we're ready for that transition to keep moving forward with getting our archives preserved. We've been doing a great job on that, and it's just astounding to me. In fact, I think we need to put a little blurb out for the annual report. And I haven't seen a note about when those are due. Hope I haven't missed that. Note to self. Annual report. Because it would astound people to know how much we've been able to accomplish. All right. Other business not known at the time?
I have nothing.
Member concerns?
Did we get money from the anonymous donor?
Yes,
Okay.
we did, another $5,000. And that's the kind of thing we need to get in front. So when town meetings happen and they're voting us money, which is usually the fall, they can understand how that matching kind of money makes a huge difference in what we can do. Because we know how expensive it is to preserve even the smallest of documents.
Well, we did a good deal of the heavy lifting as best we could
Yeah.
before we connected with this guy.
Yeah, and it hasn't gotten any cheaper, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But right now, we've got a good relationship with the donor, and that's going to continue to move forward. And we're pleased. No concerns?
I have one
I
concern.
have none.
Dropping it all? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're out of here, folks.